Hello everybody, welcome to Percussion Axiom TV. I'm your host Tom Burritt, and this is episode number 77. Just wanted to do a quick episode today, or at least I hope it'll be quick, and talk about a resource that I'm really happy that I had handy when the time came. And that is William Craft's version of Histoire du Soldat. And it's actually not L'Histoire du Soldat, but Histoire du Soldat. Soldier's Tale, a famous piece by Igor Stravinsky, which is a very important piece in our repertoire for a lot of different reasons. Probably the most important, it was one of the first, if not the first, works by an important composer such as Stravinsky that featured the percussionist playing sort of a multi-percussion setup, or just the idea that one player could play multiple instruments. So I have no doubt that many of you watching this have either played this piece or certainly know about it. If you don't know about it, it's something you should really look into. But there's so much to understand and know about this piece. Those of you who are familiar with it will, recognize the fact that the original parts are very confusing because it was the first time that Stravinsky really ever, or any composer for that matter, really tried to write multiple instruments for one percussionist to play. There became the whole issue of notation, how to actually notate that. And one of the problems we still face today is that there really isn't a very specific standard on how to notate for multi-percussion, and you might find it slightly different or very different based on the work you're playing. And we're all percussionists, watch the show, we know this already. But this is sort of the first example of that. So because of these issues, William Craft put together this really awesome, very helpful edition of the percussion part that basically does all of the hard work for you. And again, I know many of you probably know about this, but if you don't, and you have to play this piece sometime, it can save you just huge amounts of time and frustration trying to figure out how to do this, okay? So whenever we think about an edition, it's really important to do your homework and to realize, okay, who is this person and what association do they have with the piece that puts them in some kind of authority. And obviously in a research situation, you want to deal with firsthand resources or sources if possible. And that's the case here. Igor Stravinsky worked with William Craft and was there. They worked very closely together in LA back in the 60s. And there's a recording on Columbia that was sort of the combination and sort of the culmination of their collaboration together. So it's firsthand source, which obviously is really important. And I don't have the original score here. I'm really sorry. I should have brought that in here. But and there are multiple versions of this you'll find in your research. But most of the other editions, especially the original version that actually Stravinsky either notated or wrote out specifically, is really impossible to read basically, because essentially what he did was, or the copyist did, whoever did this, put each instrument on its own staff, requiring lots of space for the part, and you'll have a note up here, and then an eighth note connected on a stem to 2/16 notes down here, and then just way too vertical in the way the part was written. So it really, from a notational standpoint, you can see from this part that William Craft has put everything kind of in nice and neat order for you. There's lots of other issues here that this helps with. So it's important to realize that William Craft had a really close association with Stravinsky. So you can see how specific this edition is. It gives you a real clear description of what, from a notational perspective, he decided to do, what instruments where. It gets very specific with what type of instruments to use. This is Stravinsky's original setup. This is the setup that he prescribes, making it just a little bit easier. And here is a very specific list of mallets that you'll need. The part indicates very carefully when to use what mallet, when to flip your snares on and off for the field drum. So it's incredibly helpful. But I just wanted to share a little bit more detail about this. These are the type of issues that this edition sort of solves. So in this little notes section, William Craft says, of primary concern was the meaning of the term tambour, which is simply the French generic term for drum. As the tambour was notated in the top line of the staff, it was assumed by many percussionists Stravinsky meant a drum pitched higher than the two casse clairs. So there's two other drums here, snare drums with snares off, and And Stravinsky notated the tambour to be on the top space, which we would think in typical notational terms is a high drum. But when, so he continues, in order to be certain that there was no question about the drums, I laid several out on the floor for Stravinsky to specify which best represented his original and true intention. He indicated the field drum as being the tambour, so a field drum is a much deeper drum. And in response to my query, why is it notated on the top line, he responded simply, because it is on the right. So anyway, there's some differences obviously in how Stravinsky and Kraft, or percussionists in this case, would think about notating this, okay? So the tambour is actually the lowest drum, the field drum, but that's notated on the top staff. So there's some good clarification there. Then there's some issues. There actually is a mistake in the actual real score that Stravinsky put out regarding the snares on, snares off. And so he explains about how and when, where the mistake is, and at what point you go without snares, or at one point you go with snares. So that you would never get from the original because it's actually incorrect there. So it's very helpful from that perspective. Couple other interesting tidbits about this. Because it was really the first time that this had been done, at least officially, Stravinsky actually sat down and played through the part to make sure it was all possible. Now, obviously, according to this and how helpful from a notational perspective this is, Stravinsky sort of failed a little bit, at least in the notational aspect of things. But I think it's interesting that he went through the lengths that he did to actually play through the part and try to play through it. It also keeps, there's lots of stuff here, guys, including what type of sound Stravinsky actually really wanted from the drums, down to exactly what kind of mallet he preferred. So you can check that out. That's really helpful. Couple other little tidbits that's interesting, because I don't want the show to go on too long, is that on the same program as the premiere of this is another piece with the same instrumentation as Soldier's Tale. And that was a piece by Jolivet, the French composer, who wrote a piece called Rhapsody for Seven. And I've actually played this work. I'd be curious to know if anyone out there has played that piece. It was basically written for the same concert as Soldier's Tale. And so same instrumentation. Percussion part is pretty much identical in setup, although I believe Jolivet, from what I remember, added a tam-tam and maybe a few other things, like a couple cowbells. Anyway, I played this part about 4 or 5 years ago in the summer festival at Round Top, and not a single soul that played with me had ever played it before. And it's a phenomenal piece, a really amazing piece. And the percussion part makes this look like a walk in the park. So anyway, just wanted to just kind of get it out there. Check out that piece too. Very similar in style and scope. Jolivet is a fantastic composer, I think highly underrated. And anyway, that percussion part was just a beast. And this one isn't easy either. Okay, so that's interesting about the Jolivet. Now the ending, getting back to Soldier's Tale, the ending of Soldier's Tale has some interesting issues about it. There's basically, the piece ends with a percussion solo, and there's some confusion, or it's unclear what to do with that music at the end, whether you should fade out as the soldier walks away if you do the stage version, or if you should crescendo to the very end. Stravinsky actually didn't like the crescendo to the very end, but it's fairly common to hear that to make sort of a big ending, or to announce somehow that the devil has won, and if you're familiar with the tale. So anyway, there's a reference in here as well about the ending that helps you a lot. And one thing we have, I'm actually playing this piece early next week in our first rehearsals tonight, and one of the first things I will talk to the conductor about is how we think the ending should be. So, all right. So anyway, this is an awesome resource, guys, and I realize that probably a lot of you know about it, but if you don't, there you go. That's the show today. So the question of the episode is this. What other great resources are you guys aware of that can be this helpful? I mean, this literally saves you hours and hours and hours. I'd love to know your answer to that. And also, if you've played the Jolivet Rhapsody, absolutely phenomenal piece. If you don't know it, go check it out. Yeah, so that's today's show. You'll find this first at drumchatter.com. So let's keep all all the discussion there. There'll be a separate forum post on the chatter page for that. I really hope you guys are liking Drum Chatter. It's been a blast for us to do, and yeah. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this format of the show. It's been a little while since I just sat down and did a show like this, so hope you guys enjoyed that. And anyway, love the interaction. It's great to be back, and we'll see you next time.